are you tasking the National Guard soldiers with removing masks? The Trump administration is seeking a spectacle here, wanted to use active duty U.S. troops on the streets of a major city.
Let's hop into a Face the Nation interview with DHS Secretary and residential puppy killer Kristi Noem as she speaks about not her dogs, but the ICE raids and unconstitutional deportation. So if you can, as always, start off, take a moment, leave us a like on the video, helps us out a ton, gives us a boost in the algorithm, and completely free. And let's hop right into the discussion.
California's governor doesn't want the federalized system here. He says he's got it under control. There's no shortage of law enforcement. Gavin Newsom said he's called in California Highway Patrol. He says the Trump administration is seeking a spectacle here. He's saying to protesters, don't get violent, don't engage.
Well, if he was doing his job, then people wouldn't have gotten hurt the last couple of days.
This is insane for multiple reasons, right? Partly because it's just preying on people's ignorance. For those who don't know, there wasn't a single act of violence or even an arrest prior to the ICE raid, which then escalated things because there's multiple instances of them like flashbanging, tear gassing peaceful protesters. So to then blame their actions on what the response was, insane. I cannot express how also psychotic it is to have a president dispatching what has turned into his personal political police force to go and hurt a bunch of liberals. But it's also insane because when Texas officials literally hijacked the border, like we're absolutely doing some insane shit, right? They're refusing any crossings. They're essentially holding hostage federal territory and policy. Kristi Noem herself and all Republicans were stating it would be an attack on states' rights and unconstitutional if Biden deployed the National Guard to handle immigration, which is clearly in federal jurisdiction, not state jurisdiction, as you can see by Trump arguments now, but it's pertinent now for peaceful protests? Like, what are we doing here?
President Trump said masks will not be allowed to be worn at protests. Who's going to enforce that and how? And how can you justify it when law enforcement officials have their faces covered?
You know, what I would say is that the law is going to be enforced, and that what the laws are in this country is what we are doing, and our ICE officers and our law enforcement officers out there that are in these situations where people have questioned why they have their faces covered. It's for the safety of those individuals or the work that they're doing as far as protecting their identity so they can continue to do investigative work. So,
but are you tasking the National Guard soldiers with removing masks from protesters? I mean, are you trying to use them in that way?
National Guard soldiers are there to provide security for operations and to make sure that we have peaceful protests. So that's what their work is. And I won't get more specific on that.
And I could just as easily say under this clearly fascist Trump administration that has literally deported people for peacefully protesting. Protesters are right to wear masks and want to protect themselves and their identities as well. But understand what this power imbalance that Trump thinks is is justified between agents, federal agents, and civilians, where protesters can't wear a mask of any time, but ICE can. They can accost you in a full ski, not identify themselves. They can have everything entirely concealed. They're trying to let them in your home without a warrant, and they're going as far to now overstep a sanctuary state's rights, a sanctuary city within that sanctuary state's rights to set its own laws, literally going against what the founding fathers laid out in the Constitution as the apparent party of the Constitution, party of patriots. Never let these people tell you they're principled on anything. It's whatever they think gives them the moral high ground when the wind blows, and never let them tell you that they are anything other than fascist authoritarians who legitimately want a king for president. They're either that or they're not there yet because they already think that's kind of how our government works and they just don't understand that. And the second they do realize it's not structured like that at all, like we have co-equal branches in democracy, then they'll instantly cross that line and get there. The only two kind of Trump supporters.
Defense Secretary also tweeted last night that he put active duty Marines at Camp Pendleton on high alert. We know, since you mentioned 2020, that President Trump, during those Black Lives Matter protests at the time, had wanted to use active duty U.S. troops on the streets of a major city. The 82nd Airborne at the time was called up. They were not sent into the streets. What exactly do you set as Homeland Security Secretary as your benchmark for when you would counsel the President of the United States to send active duty troops in to police a domestic disturbance?
Well, my hope is always that we work with local leaders that would do their jobs. And that is what has failed in LA, is that the mayor has refused to recognize the dangerous situation that she's perpetuating, as well as the governor.
What is truly scary about this is what stopped it in the last term was those who had experience in their job, who would put the country before the party, who stopped Trump in these insane aspirations where he did want to mobilize U.S. troops. He asked about the efficacy of shooting protesters in the leg with them to stop them, where now we're running it back, but with a dumbass like Pete Hegseth in charge, who's probably 3 shots deep by the time Trump gives them a call to mobilize the troops. Nobody in this administration dares tell Trump no, because none of them are even kind of qualified for the jobs they hold, and they know that they will be fired and never have another chance in life to hold any kind of job like that, any bit of power like what they have now, if they ever said no to Donald Trump. And it's going to lead to horrendous outcomes, like we on the left all promise, and like what we're already seeing. These riots are entirely on the actions of Donald Trump's ICE, what they have taken. Sending in the National Guard is only going to escalate that. Mobilizing soldiers, this only stands to make it worse. And I think we know by now that Trump has no ability to de-escalate or end conflicts, master negotiator, hardly, art of the deal, hardly. I mean, he paid a ghostwriter for that book for a reason, which is why I think we need a real leader in charge. We need the adults back in the room. I mean, nothing like this ever happened under Joe Biden.